once again, people. So if you have been paying attention, you'll have known we are flying through Dark Hour. In fact, this is the final video of it. I know it's been a long journey, but here we are, 24 videos in, because it's 23 levels plus the intro. So yeah, a little bit of a journey, not as long as Q2 was, but the levels definitely had more investment to them, and sometimes therefore took a lot longer to complete. But definitely a lot better than what we saw in Q2. But anyway, before we really talk about that, let's actually talk about the final level. Okay, so today we're focusing on a level called Mirrored Rooms. Mirrored Rooms was made by Alex Bavitsky, and it is challenging because there are many areas where the snipers can hide. Dark areas. Wait, that's a description? That just feels like a weird way to describe your level. You know, it is challenging because there are areas where they can hide. The end. Nothing about it otherwise, it just feels kind of like, I don't know, like a sentence extracted from a longer whole. It feels really jarring in a way. It makes sense, but it just feels lacking, for a better term. Anyway, this is modified by RB. No idea who RB is. Maybe related to Alex, but no idea. None of the authors we have are RB, nor could I really figure out who is RB by people who worked on Dark Hour. Plus, even if it was, we don't have any confirmation. No one who just used initials RB. Yeah, it's kind of random that that's there. And also odd enough, why is it in the author tab? Why is it in the description? Why wouldn't you, like, say author and modified in the same field? It just feels kind of weird to not have it there. But be a nitpick, I guess, at this point. Mirrored rooms. Yeah. Not the best levels. It is single player based, which is really weird after what I said about being made into 3 parts. Well, here's where it gets weird. Here's a level that is just there. Makes no sense whatsoever. But it's there. It's a thing, and it's really strange because it's a deathmatch level, and it just kind of is random. Very random in an experimental pack. But I don't think it's the best of levels at all. And we'll talk about it as I actually play this thing. Let's load it up and check it out. Okay, will things work this time? Would be nice. Oh god, everyone's trying to kill me. Including a Shambler. Oh god, everyone's trying to hurt me. My god. Well, we got a beanstalk. Hooray, I have 5 health. Yeah, this is gonna be painful. Okay, help, resources. Oh god, another feed. There's a sham when we went. Okay, there's some things dead. Got that. What else is there? Lots of random doors, as you see. This is a pointless dead end. Where am I going? How does one get out of here? We have this. As you see, there's only 18 enemies, but you basically have to fight 9 at the start because of how chaotic it is. You know, spawn in and have a bunch of cheap enemies attack you. You know, I haven't complained about that enough. So here you are, bunch of enemies attack you at the beginning. And now, we're trying to figure out how to get this bloody first room. Yeah, how do you get out of the first room? This is a bit strange, people. I'm trying to figure it out. Let's see. Middle area, maybe? Oh, there's a button here. I see. Yeah, totally arbitrary button. Okay. It's a trap! Alright, there we are. Oh, a pentagram, I could use that. Quick, use it to kill everything! Like a enemy over here? Yes, there is, and that's everyone. Hooray! Everyone is dead! So, yeah, about this level. If you haven't figured it out, it is a really terrible map. Because you see, the entire map is basically 2 areas that are symmetrical. That's what the name Mirrored Rooms is about. Let me get out of here. Yeah, it's basically 2 rooms that look absolutely identical. And well, that's the entire point. You do one room, then you go to another symmetrical room and do it. Amazing idea for a level! Who likes repeating themselves and doing the exact same thing twice? Yeah! Fun! Yeah, not really the most interesting of missions, honestly. It's just kind of there. Symmetry, I guess you could say it's not perfect symmetry because they vary the enemies and the power-ups. But the way it's designed, the first area is kind of a joke. It spawns you into a map with like a bunch of enemies attacking you. I would have preferred that for like the second area or so, you know, after you've had like a minute to spawn. I always find it a very cheap route to spawn you into a map with a bunch of enemies trying to kill you. It just feels like you should have that minute of getting able to be acquainted with everything before they throw, surprise, everyone's trying to kill you. Especially if it takes you like a minute to start recording a level or whatever it is. It's better if you have like a second to actually do what you need to be doing. And it doesn't really allow that in whatchamacallit, some of these levels. So that's the thing. Not the best of things at all. The symmetry, not the best of things at all either. Other than that, it's kind of a funky level because the fact of the matter it has 2 power-ups, it's a small area. Once you pick up a power-up, you go from it being brutal and almost near impossible to it being too easy. There's no middle ground. Either it's too easy, or everything's kind of being cheap at you. Like I said, I would rather have had like that mob be the second one, and then not be a power up. Because the second one, I was able to clear out without any challenge whatsoever, because, you know, pentagram. And the first one became a joke as soon as I picked up the quad damage. So it felt kind of easy there for a level that also had some cheapness to it. At the same time, the geometry is totally uninteresting, and it even has some frustration as you're trying to find the random button that opens it. I mean, explain to me the logic of the button. It just doesn't make sense at all. And yeah, this level just feels like it was slapped together. It doesn't feel like any place, doesn't really have much to offer. It's just kind of there. And at the end of the day, that's the problem. Because it's basically the same map twice, it really becomes an area of lack of exploration because everything starts to feel the same. What's the point of exploring if every room looks the same? It's why I hate dungeons and mazes. Mazes and dungeons to me, the point I dislike them is because every single room looks alike. And if you're going to have every single room look alike, what's the point of me even looking around your map? Um, I'm just not the type that feels it's worthy of its exploration if I'm going to see the same thing I'm already seeing. Um, and here, that's basically what they did. They showed you one room, then you could see a second room. Yeah. I might as well have just seen the first room and I saw the whole thing. It just feels pointless and repetitive. It's a small map to not really be at the depth, and the entire theme of the level is that repetition. But it's pretty boring. There's nothing I can really say good about the level. Besides the fact that because it's cheap, it offers some challenge at the beginning. The first few enemies, it can be rough. But what I didn't show you is that you can totally exploit the level. You see, the first time around, in that corner, the fiend came over there and I tried to hit him with the axe. If I'd shot him to death with a shotgun, I wouldn't have had any problems. And that's part of the problem. Much like Q2, enemies can't reach you everywhere. And there's areas we can totally exploit fiends. For some reason, it's always fiends. And yeah, the fiend here was basically jumping over and over. And I could have pretty much easily killed him. We have had some fun with the Shambler, but then we would have had the ability to move around pretty quickly. And yeah, the main thing would have been just basically killing a fiend that cornered us by shooting him to death. It really isn't that challenging as long as you rush to the area I rushed to. And it feels kind of unbalanced because of that. It's unbalanced because of the power-ups. There's no stability. It starts out trying to kill you really quickly, and then everything becomes too easy. Why have an area that's going to have a Shambler basically kill you in 2 seconds if you don't move rapidly enough, if it's going to become an easy level after that? It just feels pointless. So yeah, definitely not the highlight of this pack. It's there. It's another level. It's another single player level at least, better than more multiplayer levels. But it's just kind of there. So, yeah. At the end of the day, that's the problem. And that's basically all at Dark Hour. Every single level. So, Dark Hour in Q2. Q2 we played first. You know my opinions on it. It's not the Antichrist. It ain't the worst thing in the world. I'd rather play that than say, many sprite-based games, honestly. Because it's the same base game as Quake. And Quake itself is good. So, by definition, even the worst Quake level is still going to be better than a game I dislike. Just because even if you sloppily put it together, it's still fine because it's a game I like. But there is some things you could do wrong. You could make it very frustrating and tedious. And Q2 didn't do that because it was so simplistic, which kind of helped it. You see, Dark Hour in Q2, they're very simplistic design choices. It's made for like corridor-based runners and all that, like Quake was. But Q2 takes it to an extreme that's almost too much. And it leaves no landmarks, leaves nothing of interest, and it becomes too samey because of that. It lacks that exploration factor I'm talking about. And that's the main reason I kind of get bugged by it. Not because of really what it has or what it's lacking, besides the fact that it lacks um, some unique design. Something that stands out instead of feeling like a bunch of rooms. If you like dungeon crawlers, I really don't see a problem with Q2. Honestly, I feel like if you like a dungeon crawler, Q2 is up your alley because it's the same idea as, say, like the Ultima series or something like that. But I guess that's just me grouping things together and getting confused on people's logic. But I'm not other people. And in my logic, Q2 does not have the exploration factor I'm looking for, and therefore it falls flat on its face. And gameplay wise, it's not usually too difficult, so it becomes pretty boring. um, Dark Hour is a bit better. The one thing I will say about Dark Hour, it's hard to blanket term anything. Dark Hour is a game that really has a bunch of different levels, and they're all over the place in what they are. Some are really good, some aren't. Some are really horrible. But the thing I can say is a lot of them are experimental. They try and do their own unique things, which it's good in the end. I'd rather that than a bunch of levels that try and be samey, like Q2 was. um, the exploration factor, therefore, is there just because I have no idea what to expect next, which is something I like. I like the idea of loading up a level and not knowing what I'm going to get, and it feeling like a totally different experience to everything else in Dark Hour. That's pretty nice. Even the most offensive levels here, at least were standalone pain in the butts that after that level would go away and not be a problem again. I mean, every level could have been like office hell, but it wasn't. That was the only isolated incident we had with that, which I do have to say is good. It had some experiments, some were good, some failed, but I prefer that to a monotonous style pack. So that's kind of where I say Dark Hour is one of the best packs out there that I've touched, because it does things. It isn't afraid to try different things, even if they're not the best. At least it is trying and not beating the same drum that's already been beat to death. Um, so, let's see here. What does Dark Hour have to offer? It is kind of an interesting pack because it has some campaigns, some that are standalone, and it doesn't say that any are a campaign. The campaign comes as a complete surprise. I like the fact that there's a campaign, but I can't really give it too many points because nobody would even know it exists until you've already played it. So most likely you're going to play in alphabetical order, and guess what? Valhalla is one of the last levels you'll play, and that's the first level. So it's kind of backwards, honestly. It feels rather weird in its design and how it has a campaign but doesn't say anything about it. It is just kind of there. And so, yeah, it really is kind of therefore hard to just say go into it blind and enjoy it because you won't know what to expect until you've already torn it all apart. So there's that. um, but I will say some of the levels are very interesting, and as standalones or as a campaign, you will enjoy them. Um, I like I like abstractions. Abstractions is a very unique concept that I think stands as probably one of the most experimental levels. Mandypen is good for its design choices. Flooded, just because it is pretty nice and introduced the water elevator, which is the nice, interesting hazard of Dark Hour. Um, so there are some that are, of course, pretty terrible. Spiral Degeneration, Office Hell, but overall, you'll find most are pretty in the meh category. A lot of levels in the middle that did some things right, but also did a lot of floppy based things. Um, but at the end of the day, I like the experimentation based factor of Dark Hour. And I think when they succeeded, they made some very interesting levels you won't see elsewhere. So I guess that's why I praise Dark Hour a lot. Um, there are, of course, a lot of levels in here that you're not going to be happy with, but um, definitely some that, like abstractions, I feel is a good one. And there are some other hidden gems in there, as I was saying earlier. And as I said, there's a lot of levels that you're not going to hate. It's just going to be more like meh. I mean, one problem is the official loader stinks. I definitely prefer the one at Dark Hour. What am I saying? Q2. But one thing I will say is that I do like the descriptions and text files and all that. I just, wish it actually worked. Dark Hour is probably the biggest pain in the butt pack to install of all of them. Um, Honestly, I think one thing that improves as we go along, and you'll see like better in Aftershock, is the fact that matter. It's a lot better to install levels there. I feel like Dark Hour really fell on its face with how you install levels, and so I wasn't a big fan of that. But on the same respect, um, we had a lot of levels that were one room ventures or too dark or other things like that. Depends on your cup of tea, of course, but at the end of the day, it feels like, um, honestly, there's not too many levels that are really that great, but at least, when they are great, they stand out. Like Battle at Home. That's a level that's pretty memorable. And honestly, I think I prefer playing stuff like that over even like stuff in Aftershock. Why? Because Aftershock tends to blur itself, I think. I think it like almost becomes too much like Quake and tries to beat itself like a drum instead of trying its own thing. And I think that that's where I kind of get bugged by it. But we'll see when we get to Aftershock. For the time being, I can only really compare this to Q2. I keep saying things about Aftershock based on past memories, but honestly, I can't really say because it's been too long since I played Aftershock. So I need to play that again and give you my full opinion, especially since I never finished it. So that's kind of a problem. So we gotta go back and check out Aftershock next and see what exactly I missed, so we can give a full opinion. Um, but Dark Hour compared to Q2, that is basically like one of the worst arguments you could ever ask. Because Q2 is so pathetic and so monotonous that it's no competition. There's no argument to be made. Of course, Q2 is worse in every single way. It is so monotonous, so boring. And while the Dark Hour levels may have flaws that I don't really like, at least it is doing different things than, say, every single Q2 level. Um, the worst Dark Hour level still feels better than Q2 simply because it's doing its own thing. I think I prefer Spiral Degeneration to, say, every single Q2 level because at least loading it up, it's not like, well, I've already done this before, let's do it again. And so I think I definitely prefer Dark Hour quite a bit more. Um, Due to the exploration factor, the fact of the matter that things keep getting interesting, I would prefer some more multi-room maps. I feel like there were a bunch of one-room maps, but there was enough variety in here to keep me interested. And at the end of the day, I'm happy to have a few very good maps than a bunch of boring maps. So that's the thing. At the end of the day, it is good we had some really high notes versus Q2, which honestly I couldn't really tell you any standout levels besides the first few. Even those were pretty monotonous. Um, but yeah, like I said, really nothing to really say besides that. Dark Hour compared to original Quake, of course it's not as good. It was more of an expansion that was kind of just doing its own thing, but of course wasn't anywhere near to the design standards and whatnot of actual Quake. I haven't seen anything that matches that. Um, but as for Dark Hour versus Q2, that's almost too easy to talk about. So, yeah, there's not really much more to say. Anyway, thank you very much all for watching. It has been an adventure, and I shall see you all when we get to Aftershock. Until then, people.